Welcome to the League Lounge. It's been a hot second since we did one of these, and welcome back, Thomas Herenstam, founder of Free League. Hey, Thomas.
Hello. Thank you. Yeah, it's
And
been a while. Yeah.
yeah, it's been since May, and we were talking about. I think back then we were talking about Blade Runner, but now we're gonna talk about Alien. Second
Yes.
edition coming out real soon to Kickstarter. Do you have a final actual date for the Kickstarter yet?
No, we don't. Still thinking about when is the best time to do it. Plan is as we stated during the fall. It could be early next year. It's actually not decided yet. And since Alien is also a license, there's all kinds of ins and outs to things have to be approved and cleared and so on. So we don't have a date yet, but as soon as we do have a date, we'll of course announce it. But it yeah,
Yeah.
could be later this fall or early next year.
Okay. And I'll jump right into it because I know we have only have a short time today. So Alien First Edition came out 2018, if I remember correctly. What
19
is
actually.
19? So what is the main difference between you think First Edition and now the Second Edition? Grimbark asks. And for whom
Yeah.
is it the which like and what yeah, anyway, the difference between the first and in which case which edition should someone new buy, and yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, first of all, I think we called it second edition. In hindsight, maybe that's not entirely accurate. We're actually considering changing. I mean, it's just going to be Alien the RPG when it's out. So what you actually call the edition is maybe not that important, but maybe it's more of an upgrade, more of an evolved edition than a complete new edition. I think that's important to state right off, and maybe I think that might have been a bit unclear at the start, since we're not throwing out the old and launching a completely new game. It's very much the same game, only improved, better. We have learned quite a bit in those 5 years. There are things we have been wanting to do. I mean, we could have done just like smaller revisions, but we felt that there was enough things that we wanted to do with the game, so it warranted something more of a new edition, even though it's more of an evolved, update edition, nor more than a complete second edition. So I think
Right.
that's a, that all that said, I think the changes that we're doing, there's a bunch of them. It's more like many small changes than like huge ones. I mean, that we are doing, I mean, includes, we're adding a solo mode, which I think is perfect for Alien.
Oh yeah.
It's going to be, so that's something, talking to Sean Tomkin, who's like the master of solo modes, and he's done them for some other games of ours as well. We're revising talents. We're expanding and revising stealth mode. Stealth mode is kind of the part of the game that's before combat. That's kind of where you kind of move from room to room in some ship or base, and stalking or being stalked by people or other things. That whole mini game it's already there in the first edition, but we're
Yeah.
sort of developing that further. We're revising things like the stress rules, the panic rules that are, I think the core was pretty good, but there are things that need to be tweaked. We're revising things like ammunition, armor, explosions, zero gravity, lots of things that we're tweaking. We're adding support for playing with miniatures. It's not going to be mandatory. It's not like you have to play the game with miniatures, but we just had a lot of fun doing that ourselves, and we feel it's a good addition that we enjoy. So that will tie into the new maps and the new stealth mode, so you can actually play that as a kind of a mini game with miniatures. If you to, you don't have to. You can play it completely theoretically as well, but it does support that more. It's going to be more ships, weapons. We're looking into adding some things from the Alien Romulus film, some cool stuff from there without going
No
into any
spoilers.
spoilers.
Yeah.
Exactly, but yes,
I
some
haven't seen it.
things.
No.
Won't spoil anything, but yeah, there was some cool stuff in there that we want to bring into the game, so we're
Yeah.
doing that, I hope.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, we're revising the graphic design a bit. So there's many things, and that's why taken all together, we felt this is a new edition, an evolved edition of the game. But it's not like a complete change. It's just lots of tweaks, additions, things like that.
So you would say that someone who knows the rules of the first edition would have a relatively easy time adapting to this new upgraded
Yeah,
version. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
And you mentioned that there are new interesting mini games for the stealth and panic. Could you expand a little bit on that?
Yeah,
Still
I
call
mean,
it in asks.
yeah, I mean, stealth rules and panning, those are related, obviously, but they're two separate things in a way. Stealth rules is where you have the mini game where you have like player characters moving through a space like a ship or a station or wherever, and you have some other party, be they other humans or xenomorphs, moving around also stalking each other. And that is kind of a mini game where the GM moves NPCs secretly behind the screen.
Yeah.
It's not just the GM deciding where things pop up. It's actually a hidden movement game that is taking place that you can do. Expanding that to, and that's where the new maps come, because in this new system you can also use the crawl spaces like air shafts and things and actually move them on the map. So it's much more of a, you can really use all of that environment in the stealth mode. Before that was a bit more underrated and it was not really developed. So you can really do all of that now if you do. So that's how we're expanding stealth mode with and also streamlining some things generally there. In terms of the panic chart, that's a little bit different. That's what happens when you face something truly horrible. You roll for panic. That is what we're changing there is that before in the first edition there were two tables. There's like one panic and you rolled on it in a couple of different situations, either when you face something horrible, but also when you roll a face hugger on your stress die in a skill roll. And that could present or result in some a bit strange results sometimes that usually work, but you had to kind of tweak them into the story. So to avoid getting results that maybe not always made sense, we're splitting it into two separate charts. So there's a stress chart for skill rolls, and then there's a panic chart for when you face something truly horrible. So that is what we hope to do by having two separate charts and also making them bigger, is that you will have a more variety of panic results and effects. And also they will be more adapted to the situation, so you don't get results that feel completely off. That's what we're doing to change those.
You will probably get into more details on the Kickstarter and what's the stretch goals, etc., etc. But I wanted to bring up a question here from GM Runs Game. Do you have a timeline for additional books, like specifically cinematic scenarios? I know you've said several times that it's going to be backwards compatible, so previously published cinematic adventures will be possible to play. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
for those who
yeah, I mean, in part of this Kickstarter, and that's actually what started the whole thing, is that we started working on a new cinematic adventure called Rapture Protocol. And that's where we started, and that's the work that we did. It's written by Dan Hicks, who's an RPG designer, and me. And we started tinkering with that. And the whole idea with Rapture Protocol was to kind of go a little back to basics, a smaller scale, maybe than some of the previous cinematics that did that were very cool but very large scale. So we felt now's the time to kind of dial it back a little bit, go back to the core experience, and that's why we started developing stealth mode more, and the whole idea of using the maps in a different way, and that all came from there. So that cinematic adventure, Rapture Protocol, which I think is really cool. I won't talk too much about it because of, I don't want to spoil it. But that is part of the Kickstarter, so that's coming at the same time as the new core rule, as well as the new starter set. So that's part of that. Beyond, of course, we'll still continue to support the line with further expansions after, but the Rapid Protocol is part of the Kickstarter.
Could you? I know you were talking about the fear mechanic, the new panic mode, but also the stealth mode. But like, there's also a skirmish mode. Is that the same thing as the panic mode, and how will it be similar?
Yeah, I mean, basically, the term skirmish mode is basically, or it's not, or skirmish is that that's usually a term used for playing with miniatures. And basically, what we realized that using this stealth mode, you can with miniatures, you can actually play the game as a skirmish miniatures game. Not really, not so you kind of use RPG rules to play a set piece using miniatures on the map, playing stealth mode and comp. So that in that sense, it's a skirmish miniatures game if you want it to be. But it's still, of course, still an RPG. But you can actually just play a scene like that, and that can be a fun night. We did it a couple of times here just for fun to test it out. But it actually works like a small game alone using miniatures. So that's what that means.
And is there going to be miniatures for previous scenario characters too, or?
The initial batch is going to be designed for Rapture Protocol, the player characters, key NPCs, and other things that you encounter there. But we also make them so that they're usable for other homebrewed scenarios or whatever. But it's kind of the focus. So the idea is that going forward, we'll release new material and new miniature sets to go along with. And as part of that, it's possible that we'll also release the previous cinematics and miniatures to go with them as well. When it's time for like a reprint maybe of Destroyer Worlds or something, we might release a miniature set to go along with that. So that's possible, but that's sort of later.
Later, yeah. Can you tell me anything about how the actual physical books, if they are going through any changes? Someone, Nick thinks
Yeah.
that they gets oily, and I can actually agree with that because I use a lot of moisturizer on my my hands.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, that is one of the things we are changing, and it'll be interesting to see how everybody feels about that. But we felt the first edition rule book is very cool. It's to flip through. It really works well, I think, as a inspirational book, as a coffee table style book, but is fairly it perhaps not is super ideal to use as a reference guide at the table. So what we're doing actually in the new edition, we're actually doing a more, in a sense, a bit more cleaner layout maybe with more like lighter pages with text on it in perhaps in a little bit more traditional way, a little bit more retro, a little bit like a old like technical manual style rather. So we're going in that direction. We hope to be able to show spreads and from the new rule book very soon, and that'll be cool to see what people feel about it. But that's the direction we're going in. So that means you wouldn't have the glossy black pages. New edition, at least not so many pages like that. So yeah.
And speaking of maps, you recently, hi, bye. So
Bye, Oscar.
you recently released some teasers of the maps coming up, but people are wondering if there will also be the old styled sort of the black and greenish blueprint maps, or is this the new graphical angle you're gonna go with?
Maps, you mean?
Maps.
Yeah.
What did I say?
Yeah, the maps are an interesting thing. The new style of maps that we blended is made for playing with miniatures. So that's why they're more detailed, and that's why they're not like this kind of old style CRT screen look, because that wouldn't really make sense with miniatures on so that's kind of the idea. We are tweaking the style of those maps. They're not finished, the ones that we showed the other week. We're still working with them in terms of maybe making them a bit more gritty, moody, but yeah, basically they are supposed to work with miniatures, so that's why they don't look like a computer screen. That wouldn't really make sense. So But also that said, we're still using the other more CRT style computer screen blueprint style maps. They won't go away. We'll still use them for overviews, for smaller scenarios, for basically the new style of maps is just for bigger cinematics, specific locations that are designed that you can use miniatures. But otherwise, for everything else, for like the overviews and other maps, that the blueprints is still will still be there.
All right. So let's talk a little bit more about the setting. Anders Jansson, our good friend to Free League, he asks that the Alien TV show is going to take place on Earth. Do you guys have any ideas for Earthbound scenarios or classes for that?
Maybe at the moment, that's not something we're working on specifically. But down the line, maybe, yeah. But it's not part of what we're doing now for the new edition. We don't know that much about the new upcoming TV show. We know some, but we're not, on the inside. We don't get every information, so we don't, So that's not part of the current work we're doing.
Do you guys have any? And this is my question based off of this. Do you have anything? Will this game or future games feature something that is? I mean, obviously, it's going to be pre-approved by the owners of Alien IP, but something that you feel like, or could you tease something that might not has ever been seen in any Alien universe before?
You mean from the new game, or?
From the game, like if there's anything like a new concept that you're like, huh, this has not been done before, or do you? Or or is that even a spoiler? Just asking that question.
No, I don't know. I mean, we're doing new things, I think, specifically in Rapture Protocol, the new adventure, definitely. We're trying to do things, definitely taking it to, new levels and doing things that at least we have done before in the RPG, for sure. So that, I can't go into too much detail because that's
Right.
will be pretty spoilery, but yeah, things like that.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the Kickstarter. Will you be offering a bundle as part of the Kickstarter?
Sure, yeah, there will definitely be bundles of all kinds, but not only bundles, because that's something, since we are offering a new core rulebook, a new starter set, and the Rapture Protocol adventure, and a miniature set. So it's like four main parts. It's also going to be so that you can choose whatever you want. If you're happy with your rule book, you don't need to get it. You can just get the adventure. If you don't want the miniatures, just ignore the miniatures, get the rest. I mean, so it will be very much, open choice. So you can pick exactly the things you want and just ignore the stuff that you're not interested in. So that's kind of the idea.
So, do you have any updates on campaign play? You talked about the stress mechanics update, but any updates on
Yeah.
campaign play?
Yeah, absolutely. Just wanted to mention that, yeah, we do have a better microphone here, but I didn't bring the computer that I should have, so that's why I'm using these headphones instead. That's not ideal. So next time the sound will be better. It's usually better than this. Yeah, it's what it is for now. Anyway, campaign play is something that we are expanding on also in the new rulebook. That we are adding more. There's like in the first edition, there's a campaign chapter where there are some random tables and tools for generating campaign play. We're expanding on those. So we're adding things there. Paul Elliott, who did the most of that work for first edition, is back expanding that for the new edition. We're also adding more locations. There's the Novgorod station in first edition. We're adding at least one more. That's the idea. We're looking at the possibility of adding like a mini campaign area, a sector of space that we describe a bit more closely. That you don't have the huge star map, but not only the huge star map, you also have like one part of space that a couple of systems, a sector that is described in a little bit more detail to make it more accessible and useful as a campaign setting. So that's all of that is kind of to enhance campaign play.
Will you, speaking of, we have people asking about virtual tabletop. Virtual tabletop. Will you guys have support for that?
Yeah, that's the idea. We hope so. That's what we want to do. Hopefully, we'll add equal support to all of them, or at least the main ones that we already work with. That's what we want to do, and that includes Alchemy, Foundry, Roll20, and the others. Fantasy Grounds also. I mean, the hope that is all of that is not entirely clear yet. But that's kind of the idea, that you'll be able to add on the VTT that you want, and it will be the same for all VTTs, no matter which is. So you're not forced to go one with one. You can get exactly that VTT that you prefer.
Can you tell us a little bit about what it's like to develop a game of this magnitude, especially for something that's so big? And like everyone has like a sort of reference to Alien and knows how they it has a huge IP, and so I was just wondering if where do you even start? Like, I know you work with people like Andrew Gaska. Will he continue, for example? People are wondering.
I mean, yeah, I mean, he's definitely a major contributor to the game, because we're not changing the setting. I mean, all of that setting material. The new edition is mainly a rules update and the new adventure. That are the main things. We are a little bit new campaign material, like I mentioned, from Paul Elliott, but that's sort of more on the procedural side. So we're not. That's why, and Drew's setting work is still there. So that's definitely going to be still remain a big part of it, and that has been a huge part of the game, obviously, to bring all of that lore, canon stuff that he knows so well. So that's not going away at all. So, but yeah, it is an interesting thing to work with something like Alien, obviously, because the game has a large community. I mean, of course, the films are iconic; they're classics. So it is a bit daunting sometimes to work with it, but also a lot of fun. I think we thought going into the edition that it would be kind of easier the second time around, but actually it turns out to maybe be harder because it's already there. So now we have to kind of elevate it another level. First time it was new and fresh, and everybody was like, "Ooh, this is a new thing." But now it's now there are expectations, so we have to
Of
meet.
course.
But it's all good. It's part of the job. So.
Do you think you'll have an cinematic adventure specifically for conventions like Sinking Tower was for Dragonbane?
Yeah, hopefully we can do that. I think we have already some adventures. We have the League of Free Agents, the organized play program, and I think there actually are some Alien adventures available there to play already. They were not, if you mean as in Sinking Tower, we did for Free RPG Day that were like printed and things. We might do that for Alien. I'd like to do that. So it's mostly a matter of getting all that work done and getting it approved and so on. But yeah, it's definitely on our mind.
Yeah. So we've now covered most questions. There's a couple of like specifically, people want to hear more about especially specifics on the new panic mode, etc. But you've talked about that. And so a soundtrack. People are wondering, will there be a new soundtrack specifically for Alien?
I don't think so. I mean, we have done it for other games. It is a bit more tricky for licensed games because licenses are limited in scope, and our license covers tabletop RPGs. So that means it doesn't cover music. So that means it's probably not within the scope of our license to produce RPG music. But yeah, it'd be cool. But no, probably not. But it'd be cool.
Okay. Do you have anything else you would like to talk about? Do you feel like we haven't brushed on yet? There's a lot of questions, but they're very similar to, like, people want more details specifically on how the game's gonna be played and how it's gonna work. You mentioned that there's gonna be new solo play, which is really cool. Do you know when there will? You said the Kickstarter might be later this fall, but also in the beginning of next year. But do you know when there will be more info that people can?
Hopefully soon. I mean, I think in the next couple of weeks we should definitely be able to show more. We really want to show some more stuff, so it's a matter of getting done and then getting it approved and we can show it. That's kind of the way it goes, and that takes time. Mostly of the time it takes us time to actually do it, but then it also needs to go through all the channels, which is fine. That means it takes a little bit of time. But that said, the next couple of weeks, the coming month, I definitely think we'll be able to show more stuff from the game. So hopefully that won't be too long.
Do you have any other free league news, by the way? People have been wondering about Vaesen, Coriolis second edition.
Yeah, what do you want to know?
Well, mostly if there's any news updates on any of them. Do you?
Coriolis is the new edition of Coriolis is being close play testing again next week. Costa just left; he's sort of running that, so hopefully that's. Otherwise, I would have asked him, but yeah, it's not that far off. Vaesen, we have some pretty cool stuff for Vaesen. We have like 2 books coming. One that I'm very much involved in, another one that is done by another team, but it's both cool. We'll see exactly when and how and all of that, but at least one of them we should be able to show in the coming month, probably around mid-October or something. There'll be things we'll be able to show that at one, maybe both books. We'll see exactly what happens on that front. Vaesen is a game that were very dear to us and a lot of fun to work with. So
it's the best. I mean, I'm biased, but it's the best game ever. How about Mutant Year Zero?
Yes, it's there. It's a big thing. It's like the first game that we did internationally, and of course, very part of the DNA of Free. So we are planning again, probably we're getting close to the point of a new edition for that game. We'd be careful not to do too many new editions though, but the Mutant has been around for a decade, so I think it's about time. So that's kind of where we're at, but we want to be careful and do it in the right way and make sure. Right. So that's why we're taking our time, but that's kind of the idea, because it feels like the kind of scope, the arc that we did, the 4 corks and everything, and now end with Ad Astra earlier this year. We feel like now we kind of ended that whole arc, and it's time for like the next chapter for Mutant Year Zero. So that's a big step, and that's why we're taking.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, so the long story short is that you guys are very busy, and will be great. Well, I think we should wrap up now because I think you should get back to figuring out how to release this Kickstarter so we can all throw our money at it.
Also, you see one thing here. There's a question on the bonus adventure from the Mythic Britain Kickstarter for Vaesen, and that's entirely a good question. That is actually we'll get that out. Before we present the next. So that if things go, we should be able to share that with the backers of the previous Vaesen Kickstarter a couple of years ago. It's taken some time within a month from now. So that shouldn't need to wait much longer for that one.
And more videos coming from Ellie explaining how RPGs work. Hopefully we're working on it. I mean, we want to do more, but it's great if you guys let us know what you need explaining, and I'll do some explaining.
Because we covered, you covered some cool Dragonbane stuff, so it's time to do some videos for other games. But then we have a few of them, so we'll have to choose which one. So any input on, we'd be happy to listen.
Oh yeah. Well, on that note, back to work, Taffy says.
Yes.
And as always, this was a pleasure talking to you, and we'll see you guys real soon. Especially, I mean, there's a lot of news coming out this fall, and
there will be better sound next time. Promise.
Oh yeah. I didn't want to say anything, but it's good. It's not that bad. It's just it's could be better. It could all right. Be better. Yeah. Thomas, you're the best. I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.